Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. Please like, share, and subscribe. This is for entertainment purpose only. This is the case of the Idaho students' murders that happened on the 13th of November. This was taken on the first day when 911 was called. The detectives came to the scene 4 hours later, and I came across this picture that I find to be very interesting. The detectives are near the neighbor's house at a certain door, and they've been here for a while, just standing outside and taking note to the area. I believe this was where the CCTV footage we saw recently a couple of weeks ago, which I believe was false, came from. So this is right near the student's house.
Not just focusing just on them, we're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going from that residence.
Authorities say there was no sign of forced entry at the home. They think this was a targeted attack and are still searching for the murder weapon.
That there's no threat to the community.
Meanwhile, a community in mourning.
Just because there's so many people here in this area who know them and love them, and we just want to shine a light on them.
While a mass murder is still on the loose.
Supervisor Tyler Palmer, Colonel Kedrick Wills of the Idaho State Police, University of Idaho President Scott Green, University of Idaho Dean of Students Blaine Eccles, and Lake County Prosecutor Bill Thompson. We are thankful for all the tips and leads the public has provided in Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison's murder investigation. No bit of information is too small, and every tip will be pursued. So far, this information has helped investigators build a picture of the areas of interest and the relationships these four had with each other and our community. We still believe there's more information to be gathered, which will continue creating a window through which we view this case. We all want to understand why this happened and what drove someone to do this. The families of those involved and our entire community deserve to know.
a.m. Later, on the morning of November 13th at 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed. The call reported an unconscious person. The call originated from inside the residence, and a surviving roommate's cell phone was used. During that call, the dispatcher spoke to multiple people who were on scene.
The dispatcher spoke to multiple people on the scene. So I would assume that is more than 3-4 people, besides the 2 surviving roommates. Why did they decide to call law enforcement 8 hours later? As a mental health counselor, I do really understand the flight, fight, and flee mode. But it doesn't take 8 hours for the roommates to have called law enforcement. That doesn't sit well with me. Because clearly Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, or especially Dylan Mortensen, let me correct myself, said that she saw the killer. The suspect, she said that he had bushy eyebrows and that he passed by her. So why would she feel safe to just lock her door and go back to sleep like nothing happened? Even after the person left, wouldn't it have been common sense for her to lock her room and call 911 immediately? because there's a threat in the house. Unless you weren't scared and knew the suspect, allegedly. And then the roommates decided to call other friends before calling law enforcement. But many people, many students said that they knew about the incident around 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. The news was spreading around, but the police were the last people to know.
Call, the dispatcher spoke to multiple people who were on scene. Moscow police officers responded and found 2 victims, 2 on the 2nd floor and 2 on the 3rd floor of 1122 King Road. The results of autopsies indicated that the 4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds, and there was no sign of sexual assault. We do not believe the following individuals were involved: the 2 surviving roommates, the male seen in a grub truck video circulating on the internet, a private party who drove Kaylee and Madison home, any of the individuals who spoke to the dispatcher on the 911 call. We're also aware of a male whom Madison and Kaylee had called several times the morning of November 13th, and we do not suspect that.
Dylan Mortensen saw someone dressed in black with a mask, and she managed to see that he has bushy eyebrows in the dark. I don't believe that Dylan Mortensen is telling the complete truth. Something is really off key here. A diamond shoe-free footprint was found at the crime scene. And 2 other prints were found there too. Unknown, unidentified, but we know that the house had a lot of traffic. The chief said that Jack wasn't involved, but I want to know why his face is swollen. Why is his hand swollen? Look at his eye.
Physical evidence, video surveillance, and they've contacted numerous residents to see if anybody may have seen or heard anything. Tips, they can be sent to our tip line or called in to our tip line. The specific areas that we're interested in are detailed on maps on our city website and our Facebook page, but as stated earlier, generally south of Taylor Avenue to Palouse River Drive and the area west of. We have heard mention that Kaylee stated she may have had a stalker. Detectives have been looking into that, and to this point have been unable to corroborate the statement, although we continue to seek information and tips regarding that report call, and we have not released the call itself. Any online reports of the victims being tied and gagged are not accurate. Regarding the resources that we've put forth in this investigation, the Moscow Police Department has 4 detectives, 24 patrol officers, and 5 support staff dedicated to this investigation.
isn't always known of what we do in law enforcement. And I'd like to explain that in just a moment. But the Idaho State Police and the FBI continue to provide resources to this investigation. I would like to speak for just a moment, if I could, not about this specific case, but rather an overview of how cases are investigated, so that maybe it'll give some sense of the why of the timeline here. We understand you want answers. We want answers too. But these take time, and if I could explain just a minute about the process here of what we go through just generally in investigation. So we use in advanced investigative techniques and crime scene processing. So what happens when a call comes in, the original officers, the first officers that respond to a scene, and then once that they've got their work there and determined that they need some additional investigative assistance, then they call investigators to come and help process that scene. And oftentimes it requires a forensics team to help process that scene. And when I say process the scene, what we're looking for any evidence that may help us to be able to find the people or person responsible for what we're seeing. And so we're collecting biological evidence, we're collecting latent evidence, whether it's shoe prints or tire marks or anything like that. We're trying to collect that evidence.
In the gruesome murder of 4 college students in Moscow, Idaho.
It's pretty traumatic when there's 4 dead college students who have been stabbed to death in one location.
The coroner saying today autopsies have been completed and the victims suffered extensive wounds after being stabbed multiple times with a large knife. Investigators now working to determine if the victims had defensive wounds or may have gotten the suspect's DNA on their bodies.
Well, looking to see if there's some clues that are on them, some of the suspects' blood perhaps, or something under somebody's fingernails.
The coroner saying the autopsies have found the time of death sometime after 2 a.m. Investigators now reviewing this video, which they say shows 2 of the victims at a food truck just hours before the murder. Police also confirmed 2 other roommates were home and unhurt at the time of the murder and are actively cooperating with the investigation.
We're not just focusing just on them, we're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going from that residence.
Welcome back, everybody. Breaking news in Idaho, where 4 college students were killed and still no answers. It is now day 6 since the horrific overnight attacks that left 4 University of Idaho students dead in their off-campus home. While many details are remaining unclear, investigators have learned that a physical struggle took place before the murders happened, and that 2 additional roommates were in another part of the house that night. They're not believed to be involved in the crime. I want to bring in NBC's Gotti Schwartz, who's standing by for us in Moscow, Idaho. Gotti, talk to us. What do we know? What more are we learning today?
Well, right now we're watching investigators outside of the home, and it appears as though they're taking pictures of some skid marks in front of the home. Now, there's a lot of people watching and a lot of wild speculation on this case. So let me just put some context to this. This right here, this is an area where police have been turning around. You've got traffic coming in and out. This is a road that's been open for a week here. And if we can pull back out, you can see that the crime scene tape has been extended over here. They basically locked down this parking lot, which is where we're at. There's a student living situation behind us. So they're not letting any cars down here. And then they've taken this crime scene tape, which is for the house right here, and it used to drop off the driveway, and for now they've just kind of stretched it here, and they're taking pictures here in the road. Now, before we jump to conclusions, this could be just normal documentation, police showing skid marks that they may have left while they were turning around, or this could be something else. At this point, we don't know. Investigators have been extremely tight-lipped about this investigation, but we have seen over the last few days investigators still coming into this house, still processing what looks like evidence inside. Yesterday, they were in the backyard putting down evidence markers, digging through the leaves, pulling things out. So this crime scene is still very much active. Meanwhile, the community is still in the same place that they were on day 1. The community is still in the same place that they were on day one. No motive, no murder suspect, no murder weapon, and the fear in this community has grown and grown and grown every day that this killer has not been caught. This is a college town, so many people in this community have decided to leave town not feeling safe. The vacation, the Thanksgiving vacation is right ahead, but a lot of people opting to leave town early because the killer is still on the loose.
I'm sure this was the skid marks of the car tires that was left behind. But I don't believe that Brian Kohlberger did this by himself. I can see other people, or at least one other person with injuries. And let's not forget, Kaylee Congalvis and Maddi Mogerson called Jack D, that is Kaylee's former boyfriend, 9 times on the hole. Did they see something? Allegedly. Did it have anything to do with what was said about Adam, or what Maddi told Adam? Because Adam and Jack D are friends and roommates or ex-roommates. Jack D said that he was sleeping, so he didn't see the 9 calls. But then why is he injured? Why did JD look so rough that day, Jack D, allegedly? The whole time he had one of his hands in his pocket and he had the other fist closed. His face looks too swollen. His eye looks injured. And he has band-aids on. Look at the band-aid on his fingers. And look at how swollen the other hand is. I remember paying attention to this in the beginning of the case. But then when Brian Kohlberger was arrested, I just believed that they had the right guy. And they possibly had the right guy. But I do believe that other people were involved. Look at how swollen his eye is. And this was the next day, the same day that the police were called at 11:53. Jack D came to collect his dog. He came with his aunt or his mother, I believe. He can hardly open his eyes. Let me try and take it a bit closer. Were there other people involved? Because Brian Kohlberger clearly said that he's going to be exonerated, and he said, were the others caught? Who are the others? I believe I heard that it was Hunter Johnson on the left who called 911. I also heard that Hunter Chippin, Eaton's brother, was called to the scene. All this happened before the police came. But yet again, the police wasn't called. There was no rush, no emergency of calling the police. They allegedly said that there was an unconscious person when it was such a messy crime scene, according to the coroner, which I believe. Was this murder pre-planned? And why did Idaho, Moscow Police Department and detectives and the chief say that this was a targeted incident. The mayor said it was a crime of passion. Kaylee was going to graduate that weekend. May she rest in peace. She came back to show her friends the car she bought for graduation, I guess. I believe whoever did this crime wanted to finish this whole incident before Kaylee could leave the university, the college. I personally don't believe Kaylee had a stalker like the police said. I believe it was someone close to Kaylee&Maddi who did it. And I believe, allegedly, this is my opinion, it had something to do with what was said to Adam. Adam is Jack D, his roommate. They don't live far from the girls, just the next block, I believe, 2-3 blocks away. And whoever wrote this comes in line with Jack's injuries, allegedly. My theory, someone came back with both girls or with Xana and Ethan. This or someone was hiding in the house until they got home. I believe that too. That is why there's no forced entry. They definitely knew this person. That's what I've always said. They need to look at every person's hands and arms that surrounded both parties that night. If stabbing was the cause of death, then more than likely they injured themselves in the process. If Ethan put up a fight, then the person has marks. Did the perpetrator take a shower and clean up before leaving out? I don't think so. I would dust closets, bathrooms, light switches. I would take the phones of every single person of both parties to every one of them. Someone knows something. They need to come forward also. If there was a lot of blood, then more than likely it would be on someone's shoes. Is there shoe prints? Did someone take DNA under each victim's nails? We have the forensics. There's certain things only I agree with this text, not everything. The part where she says, I would take all the phones and check every single person's phones, they don't need to do that. The phones will be pinged, whoever was in the area. But most likely, if there were multiple people or if there were more than one person involved, they're not going to have the phone on. If they live nearby, they're going to leave it at home so that they have an alibi that they were at home. But I agree with what she said. If stabbing was the cause of death, then more than likely they injured themselves in the process. The only person I see with injuries or with a swollen face, a swollen eye, swollen hands, and band-aids on his fingers happens to be allegedly Jack D. And that is not me speculating. Pictures tell everything. If you manage to find the pictures of him standing next to his aunt, there was just very few, you would notice that he's always hiding his hands. He does not only have a hoodie, pay attention, he has a cap and then a hoodie on top. His lips look swollen. His eyelid looks swollen, allegedly. This is just my opinion. What happened to his hands? Did he cut himself? Did he have a fight? What a coincidence that this is just a couple of hours after the police were called for the four murders, quadruple murders. I'm sure that the two houses, the two grey and blue houses, would have definitely heard something. Besides hearing a thud and a dog barking. This was a quadruple murder.
November 13th, there was a call to 911 from someone inside a Moscow, Idaho house reporting that someone was unconscious. When police arrived, they found a bloodbath. 4 people had been stabbed. Police and investigators are really trying to shut down as little information is getting released to the public. They want to make sure that this comes out in a court of law. So what we're learning is mostly from court records.
The victims were Maddi Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle.
Kaylee and Maddi had grown up together. They were longtime friends. Their family statements refer to them as sisters. Ethan and Xana were a couple. Xana lived at the home, and Ethan Chapin was there with her that night. Ethan was one of a set of triplets, and they were all going to this university. They had chosen the school for its small town feel, obviously not anticipating what would happen later. Maddi and Kaylee were out at a bar in downtown Moscow the night before the killings. There was surveillance video that captured them at a food truck. Xana and Ethan were at Ethan's fraternity house. They all, as far as we know and have been told so far, went home around 1:45 or so in the morning, and they were asleep or in their rooms by 4 a.m. Xana was apparently scrolling on TikTok on her phone around the time of the killings. Starting at 3:29, surveillance video in that neighborhood captures this white sedan driving by the scene of the crime 3 times. At 4:04, the videos show the car coming back. Again, one of the surviving roommates says she saw a man dressed in all black, wearing a mask, walking by. He was walking toward a sliding glass door, and she froze. He'd gone to DeSales University, completed his undergrad degree there, and did a master's. Police had tracked cell phone records, car records, DNA. They found a knife sheath next to one of the victims' bodies, and they tested that at a lab, and they found that there was DNA. Investigators matched that DNA to trash that they took from the home of Koberger's family. In the 4:48, 5:30 range is when surveillance videos and Brian Kohlberger's cell phone records track him going back to his apartment where he lives on Washington State University. His phone records show him back around that King Road residence, again, before police even knew about the bodies there. As far as we know, the first time anyone called police was shortly before noon that day.
8 hours. Why did it take 8 hours for the surviving roommates to call the police? What would make them think that somebody was unconscious when there was clearly a bloodbath in the house? 4 people were killed, brutally murdered. But the surviving roommates stayed in the house and just locked themselves in the rooms? Wasn't Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk scared that the killer may come back again? Or did they allegedly know the killer? People do get into a flight, fight, and flee mood or mode. But the shock would leave you within a couple of minutes or couple of Even I would assume half an hour, because there's actually somebody with a sharp-edged knife who clearly was telling a roommate, "It's okay, I'm here to help you." Dylan heard all that. Dylan saw a man with black clothing and a mask and bushy eyebrows, and he left. Thank God he didn't hurt her. Why didn't she just lock her room and call 911? Or maybe even jump out, lock your room and jump out from the window, because there is a murders inactive going on. This doesn't sit well with me, and I'm not saying that Brian Christopher Kohlberger did not do these murders. I'm just saying that there are more people involved. Because it doesn't take 8 hours to call law enforcement. The second red flag is, why would they say a roommate is unconscious? They could clearly see the blood. Trigger warning. They could clearly smell death in the air and around the whole house. So what are these people hiding? Kaylee Congalvis, may she rest in peace, had her hands clearly on the mobile device. Who was she texting? Who was she receiving texts from? Did they know that something was going to happen? I don't mean a murder, but that something was going on. Because let's not forget, right before they came to the food grub is when the CCTV camera caught Kaylee Congalvis asking Maddi on the left, her best friend, "Maddi, what did you tell Adam?" And she said, "I told Adam everything." So Adam, what was going on? Jack D, what was going on? It seems like all the students were partying. How come Jack D was asleep? What a saint. This is a college town that people are all partying or getting food. It was closed. Was it at the time of Halloween? People were getting ready for Christmas and New Year and Thanksgiving.
This hour, the crime scene remains very active. This is the most active I've seen in the last few days. Right behind me, we have the Idaho State Police forensics team inside the house. And just within the last hour, I'm not sure if you can see from this angle, but we do want to give some privacy. One of the top floor windows, the blinds have now been open. We can see from a different angle some of the forensics team coming in and out, some wearing plastic white suits, taking photos. Earlier in the day, I did see some flashes, what appeared to come from a camera from inside the home. They're spending all day here collecting evidence and reassessing the home here. Now, earlier today, this afternoon, I did notice the back sliding door to the house was opened at one point today. Now, we could see red markings stuck to the frame of the door. Idaho State Police spokesperson Aaron Snell told me this afternoon it was believed that the potential suspect came through the sliding glass door. But again, there appeared to be no signs of forced entry. Now, he says, again, that forensic team is reassessing the house, looking for any potential additional evidence. In the meantime, he gave me an update on efforts to recreate a timeline of events and how the public will be a huge help in this investigation.
We understand the public's frustration about not being provided a lot of information. We are working to the best of our ability to actually provide as much as possible. We intend to come out and solicit information from the public if they are within certain areas that we believe are of interest for this investigation. And so hopefully today or early tomorrow we will come out with a map where the victims were at specific times during the night and ultimately ending at their residence.
Police have had this surveillance video, this new video, since right after the murders, but it is just now becoming public for the first time, and it is not just video, there is also audio. Surveillance video newly obtained by News Nation shows what appears to be Kaylee Gonzalez and her best friend Maddi Mogen walking in downtown Moscow, Idaho just hours before they were murdered. You can hear their voices in the video.